Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to race number 6 of season 51 of the RTG Talladega Challenge. This is the midway point of the regular season. 5 races remain, including tonight, until we determine the 10 drivers that will be battling in this season's chase for the championship. I think you could technically call it go time, as I'm Seth Cole alongside of Zach Fremont. And I mean, Zach, we've seen these last couple of races, drivers really pick up the aggression. They kind of are getting the feeling now that they're getting down to the points where they're almost in must-win situations to be able to get themselves up into a playoff position just based on the consistency a number of drivers have had.
Yeah, we have seen a lot of guys getting really super aggressive, trying to make up points out there on the racetrack, trying to get themselves up into a better position once the race comes to a conclusion to try to put themselves in a position to contend for the championship. As like you mentioned, we are 5 races in through this regular season, and they're now starting to see the playoffs loom ahead of them. We've got Joe DeSpirito. He's on top in points. Man who has 4 pole positions so far this season. My apologies, but it's teammate Bob Seminara on the pole again for the second week in a row. Bob Seminara, already a 2-time winner this season. You start to wonder, Seth, does the competition now pick up between those Florida boys?
Well, I think it definitely does. And I think there's actually a couple of other drivers that are realizing they've got to step up their game as well, just based off of qualifying results, which we'll get to in just a moment. But, there's still 5 races to go, but the field is so packed up that, there is the possibility one good Talladega race or one bad Talladega race can really change the outlook of your position in the stands. But one driver that has really struggled here for the start of the season, at least, has been the driver of the number 10, Terry Bombard, and he is our pre-race interview driver tonight. Let's see if we get a word with him before these guys go green. Hey, Terry, it's Zach and Seth up here in the Flatout Racing Network studios. You got us?
10-4, bud. Hear me?
Yep, we've got you. Well, I mean, man, we're starting off the second half of the regular season. 5 races remain until the playoffs are put together, and you find yourself 26th in the point standings. Last week, some hard luck in that one. I mean, are you finding yourself coming into these final 5 races maybe with the mentality of a must-win situation, or do you think you can consistently in these final 5 races point your way up into the top 10?
I wouldn't say I'm worried about winning one yet. I just got to get some more consistent finishes and stop getting wrecked every week. So I've been wrecked every week so far, and I don't think I've ever been this low in the points yet. So something new here. So we'll see what happens.
Hey, Bumby, Zach in the booth. Like you just mentioned, a lot of issues out there on the track, resulting in a lot of not so desirable finishes so far. Of the 4 races that you've gotten in, your highest being 13th. Now, Bumby, look, I know you and I have run together quite a bit on these super speedways. I've seen you up there contending for victories. What do you think the secret to breaking that string of bad luck's going to be? Do you think it's just going to be right place, right time, or do you got to find yourself up front early and see if you can't just stay there?
Yeah, I just got to stop being in the wrong. You said the right place at the right time. I'm always in the wrong spot. It seems like it's like the cars are spinning and they're just finding me wherever I am. I've tried not qualifying slow. I've tried everything. So hopefully I can get up toward the front a little bit and maybe try to stay out of some of the mayhem. And because even if I get a win, I'm so far down on the points. You got to be in the top whatever it is. I don't remember 16 whatever. And I'm not even close to that yet. So I just got to start getting some consistent finishes.
Yeah, I hear that, Bumby. Hey, man, go out and show them boys how us OGs do it and see if you can't get it done out there tonight. All right, my guy?
Hey, 10-4, bud. Keep an eye on that X-Lax car. We're going to try to move him to the front.
We will definitely do that. And yeah, I mean, you just look at last season as opposed to this season. It just shows you how a series that runs every week at Talladega can completely change the way that your luck goes. Terry Bombard was a winner last year, finished 8th in the overall standings, was in the playoffs, and I believe, I would have to double check on this, but I believe that, if he were able to get a win, he would just have to be in the top 20 in points for it to count towards one of those 10 playoff spots.
Yeah, and I think what we'd see more than likely with him being in the mid 20s right now, I think if he were to come out and win a race, I think for sure that that would help his point situation quite a bit too, because the super speedway series running week after week after week, with the way that this system works and the style of this racing, it's kind of like riding a wave. When you're on top of the wave, everything is good. You know, you've got no problems, you're enjoying the ride up there, and everything is just fine. But at some point, that's going to peak and it's going to start crashing down on and around you. And that's a lot how these super speedways work. You can put yourself in a perfect position to pull off a really good race, and then by no doing of your own whatsoever. How many times have you seen the top two or three cars, racing for the win, wreck out a good portion of the field? Now, you see up front, you're like, oh, it took out the leaders, but there's so many more cars behind that affects. Bumby is kind of in one of those situations where he gets going real good, and like he said, it doesn't matter where he starts, he just finds that chaos, or rather, that chaos finds him, and that's just kind of the nature of the beast here at Talladega.
And to piggyback off of that, a lot of people say at these type of restrictor plate tracks, it's not really about where you start, it's where you finish. But you brought up the fact a lot of our wrecks here this season have been happening around the midway portion, maybe the latter half of the top 10, collecting up drivers running mid-pack towards the rear of the field. I think no more so is it important for these drivers than here in this series about good starting track position. Because you even look back at the statistics from this year, Dante Ricky is the exception. He started 21st in the season opener and won the race. But if you look at Grant Wesley's 2 wins and Bob Seminara's 2 wins from the past 4 races, they both start up inside of the top 10.
Yep. Same kind of deal with Joe DeSpirito. He's starting consistently in the top two or three, or in tonight's case, fourth. But he always manages to find himself up at the front, when it really counts. Of these 5 races that we've run, Joe DeSpirito's worst finish being fourth place. So we'll see what happens. What do we got for a starting lineup tonight, Seth?
On the poll, as you brought up, second time in a row that Bob Seminara is going to be starting on point. Talk about a guy that's had some momentum, 2 wins in the last 3 weeks, and now his second straight inside of the front row starting position. Have to chuckle. We talked with Chuck McClure, who finished second last week. He starts second tonight. He says, got to break up those Florida boys. Well, he's surrounded by Florida boys because Bernie Mobbs and Joe DeSpirito, they're going to make up row 2. Mark Paglia and Jeremy Jeffries in row 3. I believe this is the highest starting either of those drivers have had this season. Tim Knopfsker is back in the field. He'll start 7th alongside of Jessica Shelton, with Donnie Garrett and Josh Metallic completing the top 10. Bob Dixon in row 6 alongside of Billy Elliser. Grant Wesley is back in the field as well. 2-time winner will roll off 13th alongside of Chris Elliott. Row 8 is going to hold John Godfrey and Wiley Coate. Richard Martin and Jeffrey Ellett in row 9. And the top 10 completed by Dante Ricky and Dave Melson. Dante actually decided to put down a lap time. I'm in shock. You got row 10, or I'm sorry, make that row 11. Chris Emery and Terry Bombard, who we just talked with. Perry Bond and Glenn Harris in row 12. Manny D and Robbie Nices, 25th and 26th, followed by Stefan Martel in 27th. 28th will be Doug Woolley. And then the rest of the field will be Cy Jones, Sonny Tallman, Bobby Farrell, and Jerm Lewis. So, we've obviously got Dante Ricky and Grant Wesley back in the field here tonight. We've got the fact that there's a little bit of an agenda of the Florida boys working together, but Chuck McClure, we'll see if he's got some friends to help beat the Florida boys. This is going to be interesting because a lot more strategy into this race than we've had in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, for sure. A lot of guys with wins, a lot of guys that usually would have wins that don't have them yet. Chuck McClure, Josh Metallic, just to name a couple of guys that you would expect to see, in victory lane on these super speedways. It'll be interesting to see. Can Tim Knopfsker play a part? We know Tim also runs really, really well on these super speedways. And just a little side note, of those 3 Florida boys, it seems like Seminara and DeSpirito seem to get the most love. That number 90 starting in 3rd, fastest car tonight in practice.
Absolutely. And also coming into this race in a 3-way tie for the 11th position, which is between himself, Wiley Coate, and Cy Jones. There's a tie in front of them between John Godfrey and Grant Wesley. Of course, Wesley already locked into the playoffs with his 2 wins. But I mean, the points from about maybe 5th on down to 18th. And there's about roughly 10, 12 cars in that mix, still awfully close in proximity. So still Talladega, where every position's a point, could certainly play a factor here tonight into who's going to be in the top 10 and who isn't.
Yeah, for sure, Seth. And that's one of those things that we've been talking about week after week after week after week. You have to try to keep yourself out of trouble to make progress. And that's what all those guys are going to do as we take the green here at Talladega. Seth, Seminara, and Chuck side by side, they're going to take them down into turn one.
And this is going to be interesting because McClure's got Despirito pushing him, Bernie Mobbs pushing the 712. Normally, at the beginning of the season, we saw that outside line get the advantage on these restarts. Last couple of weeks, though, the inside line has been the preferred area, and it looks like Seminara might be pushed out to the front here. As soon as I say that, here comes that outside line. McClure with a big shove from the 24.
A big shove from the 24, but that 712, number 90, and 28 of Paglia already hooked up. Bump drafting real hard, sailing it off into turn 3. Coming out of turn 4, it is currently Seminara with the clear advantage over McClure, but that high line getting that run again into the tri-oval.
And we already brought up the past couple of weeks, we've seen a lot more pinching, a lot more side drafting, a lot more three-wide action. So the question is, are we going to see these drivers do the same thing here in this race, especially since we're getting closer to crunch time here as far as playoff points on the line?
You know, Seth, I feel like we ask that question every week. And no matter how we answer it, it's always wrong. Because if we think that they're going to make the long run to the green flag stops, we get a caution almost immediately. We think that we're going to get a caution. They make it all the way to the green flag pit stops and wreck going into the pits. So it's that Talladega unknown.
So what you're saying is don't make a guess.
No, just stop
Talladega's
guessing.
always going to prove you wrong.
Exactly. We just need to stop guessing and let these guys do whatever they're going to do out on the track. And we'll just talk about what they're doing on the track.
You see that top, or that middle line, I should say here, is starting to lose a little bit of momentum. That's because you got a third lane forming back there. That's the Dorito Brigade. Chris Elliott up there on the top side. I believe he's also got Bob Dixon up there with him. They've got more help as well. We'll see what kind of forward progress they can make. They've got about the same number of cars in that third lane as they do in the middle lane.
Yep, and we're seeing that third lane making quite a bit of progress as Jess Shelton's going to jump up there. She wants to see if she can't get that 9 car to give her a little bit of a push, sailing it off into turn 3. That middle lane now with only 3 cars, they might be in trouble here.
Kind of a bit of a question of what might have been last week. Jessica Shelton was leading the race, and then a late race caution came out. She lost the race lead on pit road to Bob Seminara, who went on to victory lane for the second time this season, as we're going to be 3 wide for the lead momentarily here, because that third line is the line that's producing the most speed, especially here down the front stretch.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's unique what we're seeing right now is how fast that extreme top line is. That bottom and middle line, they're staying about close to where they were when that third line was, I don't know, 4 or 5 cars farther back. But that top line making their own progress. They're making the moves that they got to make. They're going to get aggressive here early.
Yeah, they are. I mean, I'm watching a couple of drivers down there on the inside line in turn 1. We're having some difficulty. Tim Knopfsker almost got out of shape as Shelton with a push from Elliott going to edge ahead in turn 3, but all 3 lanes dead even heading for turn 4.
Yep, and you see that bottom line, Seminara just got a little bit more momentum on that bottom side. When you have just a little bit of separation, it gets really difficult to judge if you're that second car. Should I bump the car ahead of me in the corner? Because sometimes you can get away with it, but other times you'll get just a little bit more speed and momentum moving your way up to that back bumper, which can really result in disaster.
Seminara got that lap led by a splitter over Jessica Shelton, and the one problem here as well that we commentators have our hearts in our throats because it just takes one little mistake. It may even take just some kind of technical problem, maybe a warp or something, and there's going to be a lot of wrecked race cars because more than likely if a wreck takes place, it's going to be right up here at the front of the field, and then where does everybody else go?
Yeah, and that's exactly the way that it happens, Seth. If it happens that far up front, there's nowhere else for those cars behind to go. And it happens so quick that there's no way, even using your brakes, that you can break your momentum. You're going to be involved in that crash if they start wadding them up. But it looks like they are still 3 wide through the tri-oval. Seminara now with the advantage. They look like they're just pacing very casually 3 wide, going 196 miles an hour down in the corners there, Seth.
That's what it looks like. You and I have been in this type of a hornet's nest before. We know that's not the case for any of these drivers, no matter if you're out in front or back at the tail end of this group. We've got some skid marks there off of turn 2. I don't know if someone ran into an issue or not. I didn't see any smoke, but we may have had a spin down there towards the inside wall that didn't necessarily bring out a yellow.
Yeah, maybe some contact farther back in the pack. Every once in a while, you'll get that accordion effect where those guys up front will be running really, really hard. And when you're running three wide, you can't maintain the speed that you do, when you're double file or single file. So when that accordion happens, a lot of times those cars in front of you start slowing up so quick that it gets really hard to avoid trouble sometimes. And that could be a case of what might have happened there.
Well, I'm looking right now at the tail end of the field. Looks like Jerm Lewis, who is scored last car in the field, is still running, and I don't see anybody out of the race. What that actually could have been, NR is kind of strange sometimes. Skid marks that you see a driver have in practice sometimes will carry over into the race. They'll still show up on the racing surface, so that was probably a spin someone had in practice, and we're just still seeing the skid marks on the track now in race conditions.
Yep. Could very well be, as we see now your leaders, the top three, pretty comfortably in line there. It looks like on the outside there, it looks, Tim Novsker. Man, Mark Paglia really came across the nose of Novsker. I thought that was going to be big time trouble.
Yeah, that was definitely close, and not exactly the best place to do it as well, going into one of the toughest parts of this super speedway, into that tri-oval. I loved a term that Kurt Busch brought up when they were having the Xfinity race at Talladega this past weekend. He mentioned the fact that the reason that it's such a difficult place for these drivers is just based on the cars themselves. There's no load going into that corner. The car itself doesn't know if it's going into a turn or going into a straightaway, so the driver has to direct the car where it's going.
Yeah, for sure. And when you put it into a driver's hands, it leaves room for that human error element. As you see a little bit farther back, it looks like, those Doritos cars three wide again, but that fast line up front is led by Paglia being pushed by Novsker, McClure, and Jeremy Jeffries. They've got the momentum in that middle line right now. And you'll see exactly where you were just talking right there. When that weight balance breaks loose, this is not one of those tracks that you want that to happen. Not at speed, and certainly not in the middle of the pack.
Yeah, I'm not really sure what happened to that second and third line, but obviously we saw as the run went on that inside line edged ahead a lot more with Seminary and Bernie Moss, but now you've got Mark Paglia out there in front, and I mean, this is interesting having the 28 out in front, because this is when we start to get towards the portion of the season where we could have a driver completely shake up the playoff standings with a trip to victory lane. Paglia's season did not start out well. His last couple of races, however, he's been able to work his way from outside the top 20, now up into a tie for 15th, and if he goes to victory lane, he could be headed for his second straight playoff appearance.
Yep, for sure. And the 28 car, that was actually one of them that we were talking about during the broadcast last week, who, with just a couple solid runs could very legitimately find himself in playoff contention. And that's all you need to do is get yourself to the playoffs, because once it resets, Seth, this is super speedway racing. We've seen how it's gone all season long. So once you're in the game, you're in the game.
Absolutely. No way that you can get knocked out, at least of the playoff standings. You can obviously get knocked out of the championship with the different rounds, as Jeremy Jeffries making a run to the inside here of Chuck McClure and Tim Novsker. You got to wonder what the mentality is there of the 088 of Novsker. This is his first start of the season here in season 51. First time that he's gaining points here. Is he in the mentality of go out there and win, not even regarding the drivers that are battling for a playoff spot? Or is he maybe in the field here tonight to help push someone to victory lane?
I've raced with Tim a lot on these super speedways. I can tell you he is by far one of the best pushers in the business. If you have a car up front, having that 088 behind you is kind of a comfort, because he's really fast and he can make your car really fast too. But as far as points are concerned, I don't think he's really in contention. What is this? Only maybe his second start this season, if that. Tim wants to go out there and get a win. I can tell you that for sure.
Well, it's Cool Ranch out in front right now as Jeremy Jeffries in that Doritos Ford Mustang leading the way. That's another driver that's way down there in the points. Has only made a limited number of starts so far this season, 33rd in the standings, but much like we were talking with Terry Bombard, still enough time here in the season that if a driver that's even outside the top 25 in points goes to victory lane and runs consistently enough in these final 5 races, could find themselves up in the top 20 in points and snatch away one of those playoff spots.
Oh, for sure. Well, if you look at it right now, the way it stands, he's 175 points out of the lead. He is 106 points out of 22nd place. Now, assuming that you can make... Oh, we got trouble!
Chris Elliott! Up and over! Harry Bombard is spinning as well. Looked like some possible bumper grab there going into turn 3. I think the 9 may have gotten down to the right rear quarter panel of Josh Metallic, perhaps.
I see the 13 rolling off there, the 60 Perry Bond. That looks like Cy Jones. I don't know if he got involved in it or was just slow.
9 car is all torn up on the front as he nosed it into the outside wall. Hard to tell if Jeffrey Elliott got a piece of it or if he was able to slow down. Boy, they tried it 3 wide one time. It worked without incident. That time, a second attempt at 3 wide, and it did not work out for about 3, 4 different drivers.
Yeah, no, and one of those drivers, driver we talked to at the top of the night, saying how he just couldn't not find trouble out there on the racetrack. Terry Bombard in that number 10, his car looking pretty tore up. I don't see anything too significant on the front end of the car, but back end definitely looking pretty used up.
Yeah, he backed it into the outside wall there after making some contact. We're going to take a look and see what it was that brought out this caution. And I'm not certain if I think he actually talking about the 9 of Chris Elliott got into the 17 of Chuck McClure. I thought it was the 39 of Metallic, although Metallic was right there in the vicinity as well. And yeah, it's just so tough for these drivers when they're going 3 wide, especially if you're that car on that outside line. Because I felt it too, where the car wants to pull down and you have to kind of correct it back up the track. And sometimes, unfortunately, that car in the middle lane might push up when you come down. And that might have been what caused that contact.
Man, I'll tell you what, two cars that were really lucky in that incident. As you mentioned before, the 17 of McClure also, if you can take another look from the view of the 39 of Josh Metallic, man, I'll tell you what, if that number 9 car had come down the track anymore, I think that wreck would have been a lot bigger than what it turned out to be. It was still pretty big, but I think it could have been a lot worse.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, the only car that kind of shot down the racetrack with that wreck was the 10 of Terry Bombard, and I actually expected a lot more cars to get collected up when that happened. But yeah, right up there at the front of the field, and
Yeah,
really surprised we didn't have more drivers collected up in this one.
yeah, the 55. I see the 54 in there as well.
Jeffrey Elliott did get sandwiched up into the wall. Oh, Terry Bombard looked like he had the wreck missed, and then he got punted from behind by the 57 of Stefan Martel.
Man, that's just so unfortunate. And like we always talk about, man, you could be clear of that incident, but another car coming into that wreck, coming up the track, coming down the track, spinning up, spinning down. It's just when there's nowhere to go, when you're in the middle of the pack like that, there's just nowhere to go. So you're kind of at the mercy of however that wreck plays itself out, unfortunately.
Yeah, a lot of drivers have the mentality of trying to come to a complete stop to make sure that they avoid the wreck. Other drivers feel that if you're stopped, you're more than likely going to get hit. It's better to keep moving. And I think that was the case of what we saw right there. The 10 of Bombard slowed down a lot more than Stefan Martel was willing to slow down. That's how the two came
Yeah.
together. I don't think that Terry Bombard's out of this thing. I definitely agree with you. He's got that rear end damage, but we've seen drivers have worse damage than that and still be able to stay up in the pack.
That's true. As long as it didn't mess with anything in the drivetrain, that would probably be my biggest concern at this point. If it's just on the rear end of that race car, he can probably stay with the draft as long as that nose is clean and there's not any major damage on the side. We'll have to see how he runs here when they go back green.
Jeremy Jeffries is going to inherit the lead now as he was first off of pit road. It'll actually be his first lap led here tonight. As you saw, Jeffrey Elliott and Robbie Nisus both come to pit road. But I mean, we went 13 laps in. We didn't quite get to the first round of green flag pit stops, but I think just the fact that we saw them really eager to try and take it 3 wide, we're able to keep it together at least once and almost twice. It's hard to tell. The aggressiveness is still there, but the ability to race both aggressive and smart, it looks like that's starting to settle in because these drivers are now realizing that these races here, these final 5 races, are kind of a make it or break it period. Your playoff chances are on the line now.
Yeah, and I think man, from a driver's perspective, I can say this without a doubt. You want to get to the front. You don't want to ride in the back, all day long, unless that's your strategy to try to save your car. But as we've seen, many times so far this season. Riding in the back doesn't necessarily guarantee that you're going to be able to stay safe. It doesn't guarantee that nothing's going to happen immediately in front of you or somewhere around you. So if you can get up front, a racer's mentality is, yeah, I want to get up there, I want to win. But a racer's mentality is, oh, I'll obviously be safer leading the field than I would be if I'm in the middle or the back of the field. So, and I think that's just all that was, man. Those Dorito cars got hooked up real good, and it looked like, I don't know, maybe just a little bit of a case of that nine trying to give a bump draft, just a little too far, into that corner, and it just kind of it set that melee off. So we'll see how those guys can rebound. We'll see, can they get that damage fixed, and how will they fare from here? Because as you mentioned, points, very big deal. We don't want to knock ourselves out of the points by wrecking out every race.
Absolutely. Looks like everybody that was involved in the wreck, they are either on pit road or have come to pit road to get damage repaired. All 31 drivers that took the green to start this race look like they will be taking the green to restart this race. We should be getting the one green signal this next time by. You're not going to miss a thing. We're going to go FRN side by side. We're going to step aside for a quick commercial break and then be back to the action here at Talladega.
Since the VFW was founded, their mission was really to look out for the veterans community, to make sure that our nation upholds its promise to really care for the service member, the veteran, and his or her family. There are several ways that the VFW fights for veterans today. The top services include disability claims assistance, advocacy on Capitol Hill and with the Department of Veterans Affairs. We also offer scholarship opportunities, and then also volunteerism. For me personally, when I came back from Iraq, my life experience was drastically different from those around me, and the veterans of foreign wars really spoke to me. The reason I would encourage veterans who have served overseas today to join the VFW is because this is your organization. The VFW is for veterans. Every generation, a new generation of leaders steps up in the veterans of foreign wars and fights for the veterans community.
The Veterans of Foreign Wars. No one does more for veterans. For more information on the VFW, go to ahctv.com/sacrifice.
Most everyone involved in sim racing always wants that edge or even make the experience a little bit better, or in this case, a little bit more in-depth. Enter iRacing iFlag. iFlag is a simulation signal box with software designed by Peter Vostro. When you are behind the wheel in iRacing, your eyes are looking down the track or maybe even in the rear or side view mirrors. You may not notice or even hear when the caution comes out, when your car is damaged, or if you get black flagged, or even notice the car beside you. Yes, iFlag will point out the sides and
Getting ready to go back green, lap 17 of 66 here tonight at Talladega Superspeedway. It's Jeremy Jeffries and Tim Nofsker leading us down here to the green flag. Had a pretty good long green flag run there before with a lot of three-wide racing. Let's see how anxious they are to do it again.
We see Jeffries with a real good start on the green flag there. I wonder, is the 712 maybe lagging back to maybe let that 24 down in there, but I don't think so. I think Jeffries just got a real good start. So is that jump going to hurt him, though? Because Nofsker and Paglia on the top side, man, they're going to have that momentum coming down the back straightaway.
Yeah, there's no push from behind for Jeremy Jeffries, whereas Nofsker, Paglia, Despirito, Metallic, they are all hooked up on that top side. Top two on the outside line might be clear by the time they get into three. Paglia thought about it, but wasn't clear.
Nope, couldn't quite do it. And I'm also interested in seeing, does that 28 stay with the 088? We saw the 088 pushing the 28, making really good time and progress. They're really fast hooked up at the front of the pack. And also another thing that we haven't seen, the 712 behind the 8 of the Jeffries car. How does the 712 push? Because with those Florida boys, I feel like the only one that we've seen push on a pretty consistent basis is the 90 car. But the 712 and the 24, they've been up there competing for the lead almost every race so far. So how does that car do now tucked behind that 8?
Yeah, I'm not really sure. I mean, to your point, it seems like when there is a pusher and a pushee, the 712 has kind of been the beneficiary. He's not only been pushed by Bernie Mobs in the past couple of weeks, but also by Joe DeSpirito. Hasn't really had a lot of experience in pushing his two teammates. So, yeah, he doesn't look like he's that eager to get to the back bumper of the 8 car for sure. As Paglia took a little peek there, thinking about going to the inside of Novsker, thinks better of it. And just to also throw a little bit of fuel on the fire in terms of strategy, two-time winner Grant Wesley. We haven't really seen him up at the front here. Well, he came to pit road to top off the fuel tank just before we went green, so currently riding back in the 26th position, but he's got the luxury of those 2 wins to be able to try a little bit of outside the box strategy.
Yeah, he's pretty comfortable right now. Obviously, he doesn't want to come out and tear up his car, but there's no need for him to really force the issue. We've seen how fast that he is. We know that he's capable of winning races. So maybe just setting himself up to relax a little bit and see what the front of the pack does. As you see now, the 88 and the 28 going low. It looked like Paglia touched that apron just a little bit as he'll now fade back up in front of the 39.
And I'm going to pick up Metallic as now Nofsker goes up to block. Seeing a little bit more blocking here earlier on than we're used to seeing as Nofsker going to get in front of the 28. Now he'll have to keep an eye on that inside line, now being led by Joe DeSpirito, who we talk to, just about every single week, and he says, "Man, I would trade in all my poles. I'd trade in all my good finishes for just one trip to victory lane coming into this season as the defending champion, but so far a 0 in the win column."
A 0 in the win column. However, 7 points to the good as far as points are concerned. Leading teammate Bob Seminara, Chuck McClure, Dante Ricci. Why do I always call him Ricci? I know it's Dante Ricci, but I always say Ricci when I read it off the screen. And Jess Shelton also having a really solid season, up to 5th place in points. You see, she's currently running about 7th position in that second line.
A couple of drivers looks like will not be winning here tonight. Looks like the 54 of Robbie Nice, the 7 of Cy Jones. They've actually faded way back from the pack, and the damaged number 9 of Chris Elliott, who took the biggest hit there in our only caution so far tonight, way off the pace. So now he's just hoping that he can kind of do damage control here, hope that some other drivers run into some issues, take harder hits than he did, maybe pick up a couple of positions and a couple points along the way.
Yep, for sure. But look at that top line, Seth. Jess Shelton leading the charge on the top side with a push from Dante Ricci. Looks like that 24 and 088, man, they're pretty quick. But when that top line gets that momentum up, it's just hard to slow them down. And you see they're making a little bit of progress, a little bit more every lap.
Wiley Coates up there, Glenn Harris, Perry Bond as well. We saw Jessica Shelton and Dante Ricci working together. I believe it was 2 or 3 weeks ago when they were trying to make a move on Grant Wesley in the closing stages of that race. At the time, I believe it was Shelton pushing Dante Ricci. Now the roles are reversed, but they're losing a little bit of ground there as the top 5 on the inside line have now all cleared themselves. Now McClure's going to jump up there and try and pick up the middle lane.
Man, I'm really surprised that Chuck jumped up there the way that he did. He had no help immediately behind him. By the time the 88 gets to him, or the 088 rather, I don't think he's going to be able to give him that push. Not with the speed that Chuck had when he went to the outside, but now you see those Florida boys. Jeremy Jeffries sitting in that second position, pushing the 24 of DeSpirito, but the 712 and the 90 right behind them. Let's see if Chuck McClure and Tim Novsker can do anything with that middle line.
Yeah, if they can get enough momentum, I wonder if Jeffries will jump up there and try and help them, or if he's going to be content to ride down there on that inside line in the second position. Of course, over here at RTG as well, they always keep everybody involved with kind of a series inside of the series. They've got the bracket tournament going on right now. 32 drivers entered into last week's race. Only 16 remain here in this round. The driver that comes into this race, though, with maybe the 2 easiest weeks would have to be that 39 of Josh Metallic. Last week, he went up against Perry Bond. Perry Bond was not in the field last week, so automatically advancing was the 39. And tonight, he comes in against Carson Krentz, who's not in the field. So we know that Josh Metallic, at least, is going to be up in the final 8. The question is who the other ones are going to be.
All right, I want to know who Josh is paying off to make these guys go away for certain weeks of time, because, running Bare Bones series on Monday nights, he runs over there too. If I got something I need to watch out for, I want to make sure I know about it before I got a knock at my door or something like that. A guy in a big black suit, nobody needs that.
Chuck McClure on that outside line now going to forage ahead. So He jumped up there, helped to pull that middle line, and they are starting to make that outside line gain a little bit more speed over the inside. And boy, I mentioned his name. It's almost like Bloody Mary. You mentioned his name 3 times and he appears. Grant Wesley's now up there 5th on that outside line, making forward progress. I think he's up to the highest he's run all night long.
Yeah, it looks like he's in about 10th or 9th position right now. He made up a lot of time over those last 2 or 3 laps. You just mentioned he was at the tail end, and over the course of 3 laps, you see how much time he's made up and how many cars he's passed. It's really impressive. Another one that we were talking about a little while ago, the number 10 car, Terry Bombard, who we were wondering, how is that damage going to affect him? He's right there mid-pack in that lot of bottom line too. So not looking like he's doing too bad.
A lot of drivers that come into this race around the bubble spot, 8th, 9th, 10th in the standings, having some good runs as well. I see John Godfrey in the 7-11. He's, I believe, 7th or 8th on that inside line, just a couple cars ahead of him. You've got Richard Martin. That's 8th and 9th in the standings coming into this one. And, you mentioned about Jessica Shelton, Josh Metallic, Chuck McClure. They've been having such consistent seasons, but so have these other guys that are just barely inside of the top 10, trying to see if they can point their way into a playoff spot.
Yeah, and again, I don't think any one of those guys is a long shot. When you talk about underdogs, in racing, you think about a guy who, doesn't traditionally run really well. Well, these are guys that do traditionally run real well. It's just kind of like in the case of Terry Bombard we were talking about earlier tonight. Circumstances don't always play out the way that you hope you will, and what can, easily be a top 5 night at these super speedways can turn into, if you're lucky, a top 25 night. It's just the way that it happens.
A big reason why we saw a third lane form twice here tonight is because the more cars you get in the middle line, the more anxious drivers are to go to the outside line, because the checkup continues to happen just like it does on the inside line. But now we're seeing them all running double wide, about 6, 7, 8 rows deep, and I'm seeing not a lot of daylight between some of these rear and front bumpers, making me just a little bit nervous that these guys might be pushing just a little too much.
Yeah, like that inside, for example, about halfway point down the back straightaway, the 90 was on the back bumper of the 712, who was on the back bumper of the 8, who was also on the back bumper of the 24. So these guys are pushing for their lives right now. The last 2 or 3 laps now, they look like they've been pacing the field at 190 plus miles an hour. It's been pretty intense.
Now, we haven't seen them go 3 wide really here since we went back green, so I'll bring this up and hopefully not have jinxed it. If we end up having green flag pit stops, these drivers went back green on lap 17. We're looking somewhere between lap 35 to 38 when these drivers would have to come down pit road.
Yeah, so if it's still another 10 laps away, I doubt anybody's even really going to give a thought to it. I say, maybe 5 laps from now, you'll see some guys maybe trying to work their way down to the bottom and prepping for that. But at this rate, they're just trying to get up there. You see that 88 now on the back end of that 39. We've seen this the weeks that Wesley has been here. The 88 and that 39, when those 2 cars hook up, traditionally, they go immediately to the front. They're really, really fast together, Seth.
Absolutely. They've got Metallic alongside Despirito, at least right now, for the 4th position. And another thing I got to think about too, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think that these drivers made green flag pit stops last week. I think every pit stop that was made was under caution. So it's at least 2 weeks since these drivers have all come to pit road as a group under green flag conditions. You have to wonder, are they a little bit maybe out of practice? Is that going to be a hindrance to them if we do end up getting to a round of green flag pit stops here tonight?
Yeah, it's definitely something that you always have to take into consideration, because it doesn't matter how many times you practice an at-speed pit stop in practice or happy hour. It's always different in the race because there's way more cars pitting with you traditionally, unless you choose to pit by yourself. But there's way more cars. Everybody has a different braking zone. Everybody uses different methods of slowing down. Some guys use just the brakes. Other guys will downshift in tandem with the brakes to try to get that engine to, get that little bit of a brake effect at high RPM. So yeah, it's something that's always on your mind as you approach green flag pit stops if they can make it there.
Well, I don't know if Oscar Mayer hot dogs and Gatorade are a good combination in real life, but they are a good combination on track right now. You mentioned at 39.88 hooked up. They are making forward progress. Now moving the 39 up to the 3rd position alongside of Mark Pagli, and now going to battle for 2nd with Tim Nofsker.
Yeah, Jessica Shelton in that 94. I'll tell you what, she's in the catbird seat there. She's enjoying the best of the Gatorade and the hot dogs. Tim Nosker trying to fight back with the beer on the low side, but they're like, nah, we don't need your beer, man. Let's see what we can do. Can they get past Chuck McClure now? Because they're making a lot of speed on that 17.
Ooh, Mark Paglia getting a little low there out of the tri-oval. And that's scary because a lot of times drivers get down low and try and tuck back up in line. You see the bumper grab usually take place at that point. Car behind usually gets a tremendous run exiting out of the tri-oval as lining up the bumpers again down the front straightaway. They've made a lot of ground on the backstretch the last couple of laps. I think Metallic may be clear for the lead already. Going to be the first time tonight that the Oscar Mayer Ford Mustang is going to go out to the lead.
Yeah, and that, just like we just mentioned, that 88 and 39, those two cars are dangerous together. On their own, they're both really fast drivers at these super speedways. They're both really good pushers. They're also good receivers. So when you get those two matched up like that, man, you better watch out because those boys are flying.
Hard to tell who that car is up ahead there. Is that the 45, I think, of Bobby Farrell that they're catching? I think Farrell started this race late. He's 24 laps down, and now they're going to put him a 25th lap down. And so Bobby Farrell here just out there logging laps, trying to preserve his position in the points, which right now is 30th in the standings. It just seems like it's so late in the race and that many laps down. I'm not really even sure he can pick up that many positions if we should have a wreck here, even in the next 10 laps.
Yeah, he would need something to happen pretty soon here, like within the next 3 or 4 laps for sure. Otherwise, he's just he might end up finishing behind some cars that don't even finish the race. But, he's a racer. He wants to be out there. He wants to run. He knows he's down, but he's not out. So he's just going to give everything he's got. So see that front row now, side by side again. McClure, that low line with McClure, Nosker, and Paglia, DeSpirito also right behind them. They made a little bit more speed. They got by that 39 and that 88 again. They figured that they needed to get their act together because those boys were gone.
Yeah, not really sure if maybe having to make their way around Bobby Farrell may have slowed down that second line or not. So they just put the 9 of Chris Elliott a second lap down. And the thing that I always watch whenever these drivers are double wide now, especially as we go longer into a run, is that inside line. As we're going to pit stops. Here we go. Wow, this is awfully early.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of early too, but it looks like most of that low line pitting together. They all get down onto pit road without incident. So we'll see how this plays out. Like you mentioned, I thought that they still had another 3 or 4 laps to go before they had to pit.
Now, the only question I have is maybe the fuel window open of pitting now and then coming to pit road one more time. That's the only thing I could possibly think of is these drivers are maybe splitting the final run in half.
That could very well be. And I'm seeing the cars that are taking tires taking just left sides, with the exception of Mobs and DeSpirito. I don't see anybody taking 4, which doesn't. Whoa, no, Bernie Mobs is taking 4 tires, man. That's really going to cost him here coming out of the pits.
And here comes the second group. Just about everybody else that didn't pit that lap ago are pitting now.
Oh, we got trouble.
John Godfrey and Dave Melson getting together at the entrance of pit lane. Now, sometimes that'll bring out a caution, sometimes it won't. And to your point, no caution.
No yellow. So what that does is that's going to put those guys that were just involved in that in a little bit of a disadvantage. However, the leaders, they got in there pretty clean. Again, seeing a lot of guys take fuel and left side tires only. So how is this going to match up? When they get back out on the track, we know that first group that pitted, they're going to be up to speed by then. Can these cars get out and down to, turn 1 before those cars get... We got another 2 cars out into the grass, Seth.
I think that might have been Sonny Tallman, the 55, Manny D in the 710 that
Still
got
no
together.
Yellow. Still no yellow?
I think that was a pit exit for both of those drivers.
All right, so here we go. Let's see what happens. That first group of cars, man, they've got a lot of speed coming through 1 and 2. We see Josh Metallic and Grant Wesley just exiting turn 2, coming down the Alabama gang super stretch. They're at about 180 miles an hour. That line coming up behind them, I would bet that they're easily mid 190 right now. So I think they're going to have to catch a draft. That second group is catching them way too fast right now.
Absolutely, and I think that Wesley and Metallic realize that they move up to the outside line, so Nofsker, Despirito, McClure, Paglia, and Jeffries will probably be the top 5 when they cross the line, but Metallic as well as Wesley, looks like Shelton, they're all going to latch on, Dante Ricky as well, so right now looks like maybe we're going to have about 10 cars up in this lead pack, maybe 12 if Richard Martin and Bob Seminara can get something going in that 2-car tandem as well.
Well, we know how quick that 712 is. The question is can the 43 get to and stick to his bumper? To be able to catch that pack ahead of them, Donnie Garrett is the closest car in the 77 with Dante Ricky. Why do I keep messing up his name, Seth? What's happening? But with Dante Ricky in front of him, they're going to have to stay close together. The 43 might have to make a couple bump drafts that he wouldn't traditionally make, because although that 712 is quick, there's just, that gap there that really concerns me. I don't know if they're able to make up that time on that front pack right now.
Well, I think they can maybe get up to Donnie Garrett, who I'm not sure if he's quite in the draft of Dante Ricky or not.
When what I'm questioning is the 77 trying to help Seminara in the 43 right now, knowing that those 2 cars, if he helps them now, could play to his advantage later on. Hey guys, I helped you earlier. Do you remember me? But no, that second pack of cars that's lined up is just now coming off, the midway point of the back straightaway. These guys going into turn 3. It'll be interesting to see if that second line of cars can make up that time. How many cars does this lead pack have in comparison to that second pack? I think right now the lead pack has the numbers, which could be really bad for that second pack.
Yeah, lead pack, if you're not counting the straggling cars of Donnie Garrett, Bob Simon, and Richard Martin, they've got 9 cars up there. You've only got 7 cars back here in this second group, being led by Glenn Harris and Billy Elliser. Elliser with a manufacturer change here mid-season, moving from Ford Mustang now over to Dodge Challenger. I think that these guys right now, they are in the hope for a caution category, because I just don't see how they're going to be able to produce enough speed to catch up to this lead group.
Yeah, not this lead group of cars. I mean, you look at it, you've got Nofsker, Despirito, McClure, Paglia, Jeffries, Grant Wesley, Josh Metallic, Jess Shelton, and Dante Ricky. We have seen those cars predominantly be the fastest cars all season long. Like, I think every one of the winners that we've had so far, with the exception of Bob Seminara, is in that first, 9 or 10 cars. So, I don't know. I think they're going to be really hard to slow down, but I don't think that these guys are going to race really hard. I think, all 8 or 9 of those cars in that pack are really smart super speedway drivers, and they know that they're working on gapping that second pack, and the chances are, at their best right at this moment with the cars that they have together.
And we can see here drivers that struggled with pit road. We already saw the contact between John Godfrey and Dave Melson at the tail end of that first group that came to pit lane. Melson is now falling a lap down in the 13. You just saw also the 99 of Doug Woolley get put a lap down, and I don't think he was involved in any pit road incident. Might have just been a very slow pit stop or didn't come out with any drafting help, so he's now a lap down as well. Currently the 99 and 13 would be in lucky dog positions should we get a caution.
Yeah, and man, I'll tell you what, it is such a disadvantage, if you have a great pit stop and then you realize you have nobody else to draft with. The cars around you, they're pacing the pack at, roughly 195 to 200 miles per hour. And out there without the draft, you're lucky to hit, 185 miles an hour. So those lead cars having 10 to 15 miles per hour on you, you're just a sitting duck. There's nothing that you can do at that point.
One driver that has faded from the front of the field is right now running in the 22nd position. I got to wonder what happened to him. He's not even in the second pack. He's actually back in a group of 5 in the third pack, and that's the 90 of Bernie Mobbs.
Yeah, and if you remember on that first round of pit stops, we commented he was the only driver in that entire first group of guys to come into the pits that took 4 tires. So you're talking easily another 3, 4, 5 seconds on pit road to complete that tire stop. So, as much as you hate to see it, that's what it is. These guys are very, very calculated in this series. They know what they do, or they know what they're doing, and they're very good at what they do. So those are the kind of mistakes, the difference between 4 and 2 tires under green flag, that you just can't make. You can't afford to make it in this series.
We're looking at the second pack of Seminara, Richard Martin, Donnie Garrett. They've now picked up 2 lap machines, Dave Melson and Doug Woolley, and it looks like they are slowly being reeled in by that third group. So if indeed that third group does merge with this second group, they'd have about maybe 11, 12 cars then in their lead pack. We'd have to see if that would allow them the opportunity to reel in this top 8. The only problem is they still haven't gotten themselves formed up, and there's about roughly 5.5 seconds between 9th and 10th place.
Yeah, and with these 9 cars at the front of the pack there, as we mentioned, these are all very, very good super speedway drivers, very smart guys. They know that to continue, gapping those guys, they need to stay single file as long as they can. They know that there's another round of pit stops that they still need to make before the end of the race. And I don't know, my gut tells me that second pack, although it's going to be bigger than this lead pack, I think you're going to see them get racy, and once they get racy, they're going to lose quite a bit more time on these guys.
Well, with the laps that these drivers decided to come down pit road, and as we commented, about 2 to 3 laps earlier than we expected, looks like the furthest a driver would be able to go now would be somewhere around lap 51, nearing about 11 laps to go. So we saw about half of this lead group come to pit road on lap 33. The other half came down pit road on the following lap, lap 34. Do we see the differing strategies again, or do we see everybody from this lead pack maybe think, you know what? We're opening up a big gap. Let's come down pit road all together on this final green flag pit stop, stick together, and settle it amongst ourselves.
To be completely honest with you, Seth, if I'm running in this lead pack, I'm hoping everybody's going to pit together, because if these guys break up, there's only 9 cars in this pack. So even if you broke those guys up, 4 and 5, so you've got 4 and 5, that would be the opportunity for any other group of cars that might, get a really good run. As we see, these 9 cars are so fast right now. They're really, really fast. You cut off a lot of speed by splitting that difference, when you have only 4 or 5 cars in that pack. So I don't know. I think if I want to have a legitimate shot at a top 10 right now, assuming no other cautions are going to come out, I'm hoping everybody's going to pit together.
It's incredible. You look at these top 9 and so many different stories amongst them. Tim Nofsker trying to win in his first start this season. Joe DeSpirito trying to get his first win, coming in the defending champion. Behind him, you got Chuck McClure, who's had 2 second-place finishes, including last week's race. He's in that third position. Mark Paglia, he's been up in the top 5 a couple of times this season. He currently is 15th in the points coming into this one. And completing the top 5, Jeremy Jeffries, who is 33rd in the points. We got 2-time winner back there in Grant Wesley. We've got a former winner in Dante Ricky back there. Jessica Shelton, who's currently 5th in points, and Josh Metallic, who's 6th in points. So it kind of comes down to the big question of who wants it more.
Yeah, I don't know. But I don't know. There's something we need to talk about right now, Seth, because I may have made a grave miscalculation when we were talking about the difference between that first pack and that second pack, and the likelihood of that second pack being able to catch that first pack. That 712, Bob Seminara, 2-time winner this season, leading that second pack, consisting of himself, Richard Martin, Donnie Garrett, Dave Melson, and company. They're making really good speed right now too. They might be able to make a little bit more headway to catch that lead pack.
Looking at the lap times right now, race leader Tim Nofsker just ran a 47.898, and Bob Seminara ran a 48.141. That second group was faster the lap before. They lost a little bit of time here on this lap. The reason I'm thinking might possibly have been, I think that first pack got a little bit of a toe there off the back of this group of cars that they're passing: Cy Jones, Robbie Nisus, and Bob Dixon.
Yeah, looking at the onboard telemetry from the number 24 of DeSpirito, who's running in second position, I saw 202 miles per hour towards the end of the back straightaway. Now, if he was pushing on that 088, Tim Nofsker may have just been just a little bit quicker than that. But yeah, they are going to pick up 2 more cars to add to that field between the nicest car and I can't see which other car that is there. But assuming that they can get and stay in line, that is extra speed. And when more cars have more speed, that makes those cars in the back, like Dante Ricky, Jess Shelton, Josh Metallic, feel like, mate, am I getting a little bit better runs on these guys? Should I poke my nose out here? Should I try to get a run? Should I try to make a move? So it'll be interesting to see as that pack gets a little bigger, if that does indeed happen.
And I'm going to be really surprised here this time. I was shocked the first time when they came down pit road a little bit earlier than we projected, but I'll be really surprised now if we see any drivers come down pit road any earlier than either lap 50 or 51, just based on the fact that these drivers now, they're wanting to come down and take on as less fuel as possible, have as short a pit stop as possible.
Yeah, right now, when they complete this next lap, full tank of gas would make it to the end. They wouldn't have anything else that they would have to worry about. So the question is, like you said, when do you come in to top off that gas? When was the most opportune time to do that? And can you bring other cars in there with you? Because if you're the lead car, if you're Tim Nofsker right now, and you decide that you're going to pit a lap earlier than maybe everybody else thought you were going to, man, you better hope that they come with you. Because if you come in and leave alone, you're in a lot of trouble.
Obviously, we're making all these speculations with the possibility that a caution will not come out, but this is Talladega. It has surprised us all season long. We've had 2 races end under caution. We ended up having one of those races where drivers were struggling for fumes to get to the start-finish line. We've had photo finishes. I mean, Talladega has always surprised us, so even though right now we're kind of making all these plans for these drivers under green flag conditions, there is no guarantee that these 9 drivers that are currently up in this lead pack are going to be the only 9 drivers battling for the win when we get around to the checkered flag.
Yeah, for sure. That's for sure. And now that first pack, man, it has really stepped away from that second pack. I'm not sure what happened back there, but as Tim Nofsker sets sail off into turn 1, that second pack is just starting to leave the tri-oval now. So when Nofsker comes out of 2, they're just now entering turn 1, and they were a lot closer than that a few laps ago. So we see the speed that the 088 and the 7 and the 24 are making right now. Now it's just how far can they make it on gas?
Going to pass a couple more machines, putting them a lap down, John Godfrey and Manny D. And we're having a little bit of a race within the race here as well, because now you've got Bob Dixon, Manny D, John Godfrey, Robbie Nice's Cy Jones. If we end up having a caution, these drivers are all battling to be one of the first 2 cars 1 lap down to get the lucky dog positions.
Right, and at this stage in the race, with as late as it is, if you can't get that lucky dog, do you stick around there and see if you can't stay out there and maybe get a wave around and hope for a quick caution? So, that's another thing that these guys might have to be taking into consideration as well.
Well, based on the fact we're getting closer to around what we think the fuel window is, that these drivers will be able to come down pit road, have a short pit stop, I'm not certain that I would take the potential quickie yellow gear strategy and take a wave around.
Yeah, and it looks like those lead cars do have their hands out the window, indicating that they're going to come in and pit this time by. Jeremy Jeffries shot out pretty high there. I thought maybe he was going to stay out, but maybe just a high entry into the pits. Everybody makes it in pretty clean as long as everybody maintain, that 55 speed limit there on pit road.
Beautifully orchestrated. All 9 cars from the lead pack that were on the lead lap on pit road here. The question is, do you take tires or not? Because I would assume with 11 laps to go, you're going to at least have to take on half a can. So do you maybe go with some right side tires here?
Yeah, at the very minimum right now, they're going to have to take at least 1 can of gas. So it doesn't hurt. If you took left sides last time by, maybe this time you take, left sides and vice versa. I don't know how I just said that, but I think I messed it up and it's okay. But as we see, that 088 real quick pit stop, sizable lead leaving the pits. He's going to have a lot of momentum. I don't think that sort of a lead coming out of the pits is going to be a good thing, Seth. I think that 88 and 17 are going to get a heck of a run on him here as they work their way down the backstretch.
They've got Dante Ricky with them as well in the 84, and that entire top 5 completely changed as well. Jeremy Jeffries overslid his pit box, so he's going to come out with this group 6th in line, and Joe DeSpirito had a rather slow pit stop as well in the 24. He was second when they came to pit road, and he ended up coming out, I think it was 8th of that group.
I don't know if you saw that or not, but that slam draft, that was an absolute slam draft that Chuck McClure laid on the back end of that 88 as they approached turn 3. Oh no, Chuck McClure having to come back in. Did he speed on the pit road, get an EOLL or a black flag?
He very well might have. I'm looking to see if the 17 was posted for speeding, and I can't tell if he was or not. But, oh man, what a tough break there for Chuck McClure, who was looking like he was en route to maybe back-to-back top 5 finishes.
And what a game changer at the front of the pack. We only have 6 cars. We went from 9 cars, 9 lead cars down to 6. A pretty sizable lead back there to Bobby Farrell, Jess Shelton, and I can't make out who that other car is out there right now. But Grant Wesley now sizing up the 088 of Tim Nosker. Dante Ricky right behind them in third. When do you start thinking about making a move? I mean, yeah, you've got 13 laps to go here at the line, but you've only got 6 cars. Do you stand to lose more than you stand to gain by racing at this point? Because even the second largest pack, man, they're not even in the screen right now. They're not even a thought.
Well, if our past races are anything to go by, completion of 62 is definitely go time, because you don't know if this race is going to end under green or under caution, and you want to make absolutely certain if that yellow flag does come out past that point of no return where the race would end under yellow, that your car is the one with the nose out in front.
Oh, for sure. And these top 6, man, they have completely checked out from the field. We've got 2 Chevrolets leading the pack. We've got 1 Toyota in third. And then another 3 Fords sitting in, 4th, 5th, and 6th. Now, again, we know how fast that 39 car is. Can he make a move? Can he pop out? Or does he go with the push move and try to see if he and Jeremy Jeffries can make time together?
We're going to have to wait and see. I'll tell you what, the race officials, they have been busy with monitoring cars on pit road. Not only was Chuck McClure pegged for speeding, but so too were Donnie Garrett, Terry Bombard, and Sonny Tallman, all having to come down pit road under green flag conditions and serve a speeding penalty.
Man, that last green flag pit stop of the night is not the pit stop that you want to have that happen. That is a night ruiner right there for those 3 drivers.
Looks like Jeffrey Elliott has taken his wounded 056 to the garage area. He's going to be, it looks like, finishing somewhere around the 29th position, maybe down as far as 31st if Dave Melson and Chris Elliott can complete a couple of more laps. But up here at the front, they are going to be taking 10 to go next time by. Only 6 cars up in this lead group, and 2 of them are former winners. The other 4 all looking for their first wins of the season. I'm looking at the manufacturers here. I don't know if there's any manufacturer alliance. You got 2 Camaros leading this race. You got the lone Toyota of Dante Ricky in third, but then you've got blue ovals, 4th, 5th, and 6th. If those 3 can generate enough of a run, would they be the group to maybe try and pass these top 3, maybe for that race win?
I don't know. We know Metallic is a really good pusher, and at the, where he's sitting in this line right now, he doesn't have the luxury of knowing that he's going to have somebody to pull out there and push him if he tries to make the move. Right now, he has to be committed to pushing, but the question is, who is it that he commits to pushing? And does Dante Ricky, does he keep pushing the 88 of Wesley? Does Wesley keep pushing the 088 of Nofsker? Because with 10 to go, we know these guys are going to start getting a little bit antsy, but I don't know if you really want to show your hand yet for maybe another 5 more laps, if, assuming we can stay under green flag.
These 6 have been able to gap themselves now by about 6.5 seconds back to the 7th and 8th place running Despirito and Shelton. They've picked up a couple of lap machines with their group, and then it's a long ways back before you get to the next car, which would be the 9th place running Chris Emery, as well as, I believe that's Joe Despirito, make that Bob Seminara, rather, in the 712. Billy Elliser's in this group also. I mean, these guys, they really need to have a caution come out here, but the big trouble for them is they need it to happen sooner rather than later, because as we mentioned, if we get a little bit further here towards the checkered flag, there's every likelihood this race could end under the caution flag.
Yeah, for sure. I don't think anybody's got anything for these top 6. But something that I want to point out, Seth, I don't know if we can get a roof cam view on the 88 of Grant Wesley, but I've been watching this car, and the nose of his Camaro, it looks like it's super glued to the rear end of the 080. Oh man, now he dives low to make a move. Oh, almost contacting the triover.
I think we've had a car blow up, I think I just heard. Not sure where it was at, but I think the caution has come out for it.
Man, an unexpected caution. That is a huge game changer.
Was it the 39? I think the 39 was the one that blew up. Metallic, who was running up there in that lead pack, it was.
What a heartbreak for that 39 car. We were just talking about him being stuck, in that sixth place position, starting to think about, potentially making a move. One of the really fast contenders out here every week, and such a shame, Seth, man, done for the night with 9 laps to go.
I mean, man, he was what, sixth, I think, of that six car lead group. Obviously, would have been the beneficiary of all 5 cars draft ahead of him, and usually it's that last car in line that ends up having the water temp go up the most as well. I don't know if that's what came into play or not, but not only is that going to be a hard hit for him here tonight, just based on the great run he was having, but sixth in the points coming to this race. A lot of momentum, too, was slowly climbing his way up there towards the top of the standings. And this now, Zach, changes everything, because what was going to be a 6-car race, we've got 18 cars that are on the lead lap. They're all going to be lined up again, plus Richard Martin and Bob Dixon are going to be the 2 free pass cars. So we're going to have 20 cars on the lead lap, all separated by maybe at the most 5 seconds, getting ready to go back green on technically a point of no return where the next flag is going to end the race.
Yeah, the only thing that I know about the outcome of this race tonight, Seth, is I think we're about to see insanity. My confidence in this race ending under green plummeted when that yellow flag came out, and that's not because of the lack of ability in any of these drivers. They're all really hard, really aggressive racers, and anybody in that top 20. I think we're going to have a green flag with about 4 laps to go. 4 laps is a long time. I would like to say we can end it under green. If we do end it under green, it's going to be crazy.
Definitely is. I mean, we saw them early on in this race take it 3 wide in the first 5 laps. So there's no doubt, I think, that these drivers, learning that they're able to do that early on, will attempt to make that second and third line work here on the closing stages of this race.
Without a doubt, there's no question about that, Seth. We are going to see 3 wide racing. There's no question in my mind about that. I think the question isn't when are they going to be 3 wide. It's going to be how soon after they take the green flag are they going to be 3 wide.
Boy, credit to Josh Metallic there. Engine let go in the middle of 3 and 4. He tried as best he could to get that car down off the racing surface below the racing line so that way a caution would not come out, but was unable to do it. And this yellow flag setting us up for, as you said, probably about a 4-lap shootout. I don't think anybody, at least up here at the front, is going to come to pit road. Everybody should be good to make it on fuel after that last pit stop. But this also kind of changes up the question that we were kind of bouncing back and forth a moment ago of when is it go time for these guys now back in the second, third, fourth row, because we're going back green with the likelihood of, a caution maybe ending this race. And as we said, it's all about positioning for these drivers. It's going to be a race back to the either caution or checkered flag. It's going to be all about positioning now for these drivers, and I don't think that you can wait until the last lap.
Hey, Seth, do you want to know when go time's going to be once this green flag drops?
3 feet past the start-finish line.
Exactly. That's exactly when it's going to be go time. I think right now, every one of those drivers, that's still out there on the racetrack, they're trying to figure out right now, who do I have the best shot of getting to the front with? If you're on the front row, the 2 cars that I do not want to be right now are those 2 88 cars that are on the front row. I think that is the worst position to be in unless they can get themselves out to a comfortable lead. We've seen the 2 of those cars hooked up together make a ton of speed down the straightaways. We clocked them at 202 miles an hour at the end of the back straightaway at one point, but I don't think Grant Wesley is going to be so interested in, pushing Tim Nosker anymore. I think that's going right out the window once the green flag drops.
Well, Grant Wesley's been on a very interesting streak as of late. He ended up winning earlier on this season, then was not in the grid the following week, came back, won the following race, and then was MIA last week. Now trying to see if he can maybe pick up his 3rd win in 5 weeks. Now, this is going to be a doozy of a finish, so I'm just going to quickly read this off while I've got the chance here under caution. Flatout Racing Network has partnered with Breast Cancer Awareness, the Breast Cancer Foundation, here during the month of October. You'll notice that our ticker is decorated all in pink, and we've got a fundraiser going on if you would like to head on over and donate. Link is in the YouTube description. And anything that you can donate, greatly appreciated for a great cause. And noticed a number more of other drivers here tonight sporting that pink. And noticed Robbie Nisus on his McDonald's Ford has got some pink numbers on his 54. So a lot of drivers getting into the breast cancer awareness mood here during the month of October.
Yeah, those pink cars looking sharp out there. It's a great cause. So yeah, if you've got the extra cash, I think everybody pretty much understands with the current economic what am I trying to go here? Climate. Everybody's cash is a little tight, but if you've got a little extra that you can spare, great foundation, great cause. Head over there and give them some love.
Just checking to make sure. We are at Talladega, right?
I think so. Yes, unless
just
we're in the
making sure.
upside down.
I'm just making sure we're not at Eldora, 'cause this is looking like a salute the fans here on the pace lap or something. They're all pacing 3 wide.
I'm not hating on super speedway racing, but I'll tell you what, I would not be opposed to us being at Eldora either.
Maybe these guys are practicing, what's going to be happening when they're about 200 miles per hour.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. Caution lights out.
Yeah, that was actually Bob Dixon and Richard Martin going around getting their laps back since they were the lucky dogs. But don't think that's not what we're going to see coming here to the start-finish line with that checkered flag waving, because we've seen them do it already twice here tonight.
Hey, those boys know if they're getting the lucky dog, they're still in this thing. They know they're going to be coming down here for 4 laps to go when we drop the green flag. Even though they're starting at the tail end of the line, if they can keep those cars clean and make it to the finish, they could very easily still pull out a top 5 or a top 10.
All right, so let's set it up. The drivers that are still in the hunt, any one of these drivers could still take this checkered flag depending on what happens on this 4 laps to go restart. Nofsker's the leader, Wesley in second, Dante Ricky, Mark Paglia, Jeremy Jeffries, your top 5. Joe DeSpirito, Jessica Shelton, Bob Seminara, Billy Elliser, and Glenn Harris. That's your top 10. They're followed by Emery in 11th, McClure in 12th, Bernie Mobbs, Wiley Coate, and Jerm Lewis. We haven't talked about him all night. He's up in 15th. Perry Bond, Donnie Garrett, Terry Bombard, Richard Martin, and Bob Dixon. That is going to be your top 10. And let's not forget, Chuck McClure, as well as Donnie Garrett and Terry Bombard. These are drivers that had to keep themselves on the lead lap after serving black flags for speeding on that last round of pit stops. So new life being breathed into those machines.
Oh, anything could happen, and we're about to see absolute insanity as they work their way off turn 4. You're going to see that Dodge Challenger pace car get ready to pull down off the track into pit road. As long as these boys can keep it out of trouble, I think we're about to see a really insane sort of finish here. We're not done yet, and don't forget, even if the yellow flag does come out again, as long as it doesn't happen immediately before that start-finish line, they'll still be racing back to get the caution flag. So let's see what happens.
Absolutely. It's never lift time, as I like to say. 4 laps to go. Next flag will end the race. Will it be yellow? Will it be white? Second line's all on the back bumper of the first row as the green flag is back out. Nofsker, Wesley, those Camaros dead even into 1.
Yeah, those 288 cars on the front row, arguably right now the class of the field, but we see Mark, we got trouble in the middle of turn 2. How they saved it and didn't actually wreck. There was at least 2 cars that were completely sideways, but they keep it clean and green going down into turn 3.
Boy, that really split up the field there as well. We've now got maybe about, I would say, 16, 17 cars up in this lead group. Some lead lap cars and lap machines intermingled, but still dead even at the front of the field. Wesley or Nofsker cannot get an advantage on each other as Nofsker comes up to push the 88 of Wesley up the track, heading for the tri-oval.
Wesley gonna get that advantage coming through the tri-oval, but we've got the third line forming. The number 17 of Chuck McClure at the front of that. Man, they're coming quick. That number 88 car better be watching that top side, because he's got to worry about Nofsker on the 88 on the inside there, because he wants to keep him at bay and stay right next to him. But if that 17 comes up, man, I don't know if you want to be stuck in the middle here coming to 2 to go.
That's McClure, Wiley Coate, Perry Bond, Donnie Garrett, Terry Bombard, and Robbie Nisus up in that third lane. Middle line's got the advantage for the moment. Wesley's going to clear Tim Nofsker. He'll take the top position, leaving them 3 wide behind him.
Man, what a power move down to the bottom of the racetrack that was. Now we see Mark Paglia leading that middle line. Man, they're getting really dicey and really close here. Can Despirito give a bit of a push to that number 28 car, who, as we've talked, needs to have a solid finish to keep himself in contention for points? Look at that. Novsker back to the outside of Wesley.
Got a great push there from Mark Paglia going into turn 1 as they still are side by side, 3 wide for around the 7th position. Shelton pushes up. Seminara stuck in the middle. Little hole open in the middle there for Dante Ricky. He doesn't take it. 1.5 laps to go. Can they make it back to the white flag is the question as Novsker edges ahead. Paglia is clear for second. He looks to the bottom going to 3.
Man, that move that we got trouble. We got trouble.
Caution's gonna wave here, certainly, as we are racing back to the proverbial checkers. It's Novsker with the point. Where does Paglia make his move? Does Wesley go with him? He moves up. They both move up. Novsker goes to block. It's gonna be a heat between the 28 and the 088 to the line.
Wesley pushing the 28 car side by side at the line. It's gonna be the 088 Novsker with the victory.
Waiting for the official telemetry to come in. It looks like it's saying 47 one-thousandths of a second. No, wait, it hasn't updated yet. 8 one-thousandths officially between the 088 and the 28. Tim Novsker, first start of season 51, first trip to victory lane.
And what did I say earlier tonight, Seth? Remember I told you, Tim Novsker, he is not in it for points. That 088 car wants to come out here and win a race. He does just that. What a great showing for that 088, man. That car was fast all night long.
You also said on that restart you didn't want to be the 80 or the 088, but we won't talk about that.
Nope, we're not talking about it.
Donnie Garrett was involved in that wreck. A lot of damage on his 77. Looks like Dave Melson got a piece of it there. I think that Melson was actually one of the drivers that had kind of almost lost the lead pack, and I wonder if maybe he had a huge run when he caught back up, which might have led to this wreck. We'll take a look at the incident in just a moment because leaders are now coming around as the pace car is going to pick them up, and Tim Novsker about to take the checkered flag, his first of the season. And now you got to wonder, I mean, there's still 4 more races after this one. This is only his first start. I'm not certain, but if Novsker shows up for the remaining 4 races, does he have enough time to point his way into the top 20 for a playoff spot?
I believe that 088, like I said, I've seen him run these super speedways. He is so good on super speedways. If anybody could do it, you know, scoring a victory here tonight with 4 more races remaining, I think it could be him. But what a good showing for that 088, man. Tim Novster coming in here, he was up at the front of the pack just about that whole race. Just a solid showing, so quick. What a win for him.
Absolutely. Tim Novsker last season was in the playoffs, just barely missed out on being in the final 4 in the season finale, finished 5th in the overall standings. So if he does make it up into the playoffs, you certainly have to consider him a threat. And I believe he also led the most laps here tonight, 66 laps of racing, and he led nearly half of them, 31 laps. So a pretty dominating performance in super speedway terms for Novsker.
For sure. What a great win for them. And what about that number 28 car of Mark Paglia, 8 one-thousandths of a second coming across the line in second place? Mark, a guy that we've talked about in the last couple weeks that, you know, realistically with some solid, consistent showings could find himself right back in playoff contention again. And, you know, coming into tonight's race, that number 28 car, he was only, I mean, we're talking a matter of points out of contention, but with that finish tonight, man, that puts him right back up in it again.
Yeah, I definitely think that this season looking a little bit better for the 28 of Paglia than last year. Last year just barely squeaked his way into the playoffs points wise, as we're going to look and see what happened here. And this was around maybe the 10th position, maybe just a couple of positions further back. 3 wide situation. Glenn Harris is the car in the middle, Donnie Garrett on the top side, and this was a pretty big wreck here through 3 and 4. Just the 08 and the 77 crowding each other going into turn 3.
Yeah, and that's, you know, that's a result of, you know, 2 guys trying to make up position and trying to finish as best as they can. Donnie Garrett, another guy that we know is really good on these super speedways and just hasn't had a good season. So, fighting for every spot, and when you're coming down to the end of the race, you hate to see it, but sometimes that's the way it ends up.
Like Dave Melson got involved in that one, as well as the 143 of Bob Dixon and the 57 of Stefan Martel, as Tim Nofsker completes his burnouts here at the start finish line. Take a look at the full finish results from this race, and a great statement here for a couple of returning drivers who weren't here last week. Dante Ricky and Grant Wesley finishing in third and fourth. Jeremy Jeffries, we talked about Novsker staying up front all night long. I don't think Jeffries fell outside of the top five pretty much this entire race.
No, and then Jeffrey's another one that had to make up some time after that miscue on pit road. Made his way back up to a very solid fifth place finish. That's going to help him if he plans on running the rest of the season out. Joe DeSpirito, sixth place. Now you look at a top six finish. He finished the sixth, and you're like, oh man, that's a pretty solid finish. It's remarkable story with DeSpirito. Up until tonight, he's not finished any lower than fourth. So just outside of the top five, but another very solid showing for Joe. That 24 team has a lot of momentum heading into the playoffs.
You know that they have had a great season when you say that a fourth place starting spot and a sixth place finish is his worst start and finish statistic this season. I mean, that 24 team has been on fire, and very lucky for him as well to be able to get that sixth place finish with that late caution, because it looked like he was going to be finishing somewhere around the eighth or ninth position should the yellow not have come out. You talk about another driver that battled back from a pit road penalty. Chuck McClure brings it home for a seventh place run, keeps himself up there in the point standings. Same for Jessica Shelton, finishing in the eighth spot. Bob Seminara is going to finish in ninth after starting on the pole. And I'm looking there at the 26 of Billy Elliser also, because, we've got these drivers that are hovering just around outside of the top 10 in points that can very easily sneak their way up into the top 10, much like Paglia did last season, into a playoff spot. Elliser came into this race 17th in the point standings. He was only about 6 points outside of a playoff spot. Solid top 10 run tonight for the 26.
And remember we were talking about just a minute ago, Mark Paglia coming into tonight's race in 15th in points. He was 69 points out coming into tonight's race. After that second place run, Seth, unofficial updated points showing the 28th of Paglia up to 7th. So he made up about 4 points that race, but those 4 points, accounting for 8 positions in that championship standing.
And we're 6 races into a season, and normally at this point, you don't really see a driver make leaps and bounds in the point standings, but it just shows how close the points still were coming into this race, because 9 spots were gained by Paglia from 16th up into the top 10, as you mentioned, in the 7th position. Another driver that finished just outside of the top 10 here, as we're looking at the points you alluded to, make that Wiley Coate, 11th place run. Now he's up in that cutoff line spot of 10th in the standings, gaining 3 spots here tonight in the points.
Yeah, and again, just another statement to how unpredictable these races are and how unpredictable the outcome of these races can be. We're seeing some guys that maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, Seth, we would have kind of questioned, will they be able to make it back in time for the playoffs? But some really fast, solid, consistent showings really starting to pay off as we get race number 6 into the books.
Now, on the flip side, a couple of drivers that came into this race running very well in the point standings, some rather dismal finishes for them. Dave Melson came into this race, I believe it was 7th in points. He drops now to 13th after a 28th place finish, 3 laps down. And of course, we've already documented Josh Metallic finishing 30th here tonight after an engine problem. He drops a couple of spots to 8th in points. So obviously, both the drivers of the 39 and the 13 looking to recover next week.
Yep. And next week is a new week. We're going to reset the field and see what sort of mayhem will ensue next week, because, we can have all these theories and all these strategies in our head, but until the checkered flag falls here at Talladega, there's never anything set in stone. You got to go out there and just do the best that you can and try to keep your car in one piece.
Absolutely. Well, let's find out what our drivers thought of tonight's events here. We're going to talk to our top 3 finishers, and let's kick things off with the season opening winner, Dante Ricky, bringing it home podium 3rd place here tonight.
I don't know.
Hey, Dante, it's Zach and Seth up here in the Flatout Racing Network studios. You got us?
Yep, gotcha.
Well, man, the first question that is burning in my mind is whenever we see you here at Talladega, at least this season, you've always run the strategy of not putting down a lap time, working your way from the back to the front. You decided to put a lap time down here tonight. What led to that choice?
Wow, let me tell you, right out of the gate, it was a three wide, white knuckle, all out, wall to wall race. And like, I knew it was going to be dangerous to get into that pack. But I mean, we just came out right out the gate with everybody in the big group, and there was no hanging in the back. You had to go up there and race. And, you know, I planned my strategy so that I was very aggressive on the pit stops. Got very lucky to get that caution flag on lap 12 to make the first pit stop. But the remaining two green flag pit stops, I was more on the aggressive side, trying to find a clear lane of space to enter the pit road and, get in there safely. So I was very aggressive on my hot pitting strategy tonight to make sure I got on that pit road safely and took most advantage of it. We were barely able to hold on to the lead draft after the first green flag pit stop, barely able to hold on. It was close. There were times I would come off of turn two and turn four, and I was very afraid of not being able to keep with the lead draft behind Jessica and with Josh and everyone else in that group. Man, oh man, Tim Nosker, really good to see him back. Great job by Tim tonight to win the race. It's great to see him win, especially at night he comes back and makes his return. Very good driver. He was up front almost the entire night. And when the caution came out for Josh, which was really unfortunate, I just had the strategy. I was going to hold the inside line until I was either clear or able to make a move. And, it turns out I was never clear until the very end. And I was able to, get up there and help with getting Tim to the finish line. Good run for Mark Paglia tonight. Mark's a really good racer. And almost had it there at the end. He had a really good run to the finish with Grant behind him, and it was really fun tonight, and I really enjoyed the race.
Let's fast forward to that end of the race there because you had about 9 cars up in the lead pack, and then after that final round of pit stops, you guys were down to 6. Now we know there's obviously a lot of talking back and forth amongst drivers of when are we going to make a move, where do we want to make it, who's going to go with me. Who did you have an alliance with there? Was there any kind of a strategy formulated there, maybe for the latter half of that top 6 when you guys might try making your move for the win?
Well, it was difficult because it was hard for me to follow, and Jeremy had been up in the main group there at the end of the run. He wasn't able to get up to my back bumper, and knowing that we were on the inside, we would have needed a three wide move, middle to back of the pack to help give the bottom line the advantage. And that didn't seem to happen. It seemed like that as soon as the outside got clear, the middle got clear, someone moved into the lane, and the middle was the line to be in. It was actually really difficult to make any strategy plan for the finish of that race, and it's just a matter of who can draft up the best and who's in the middle at the right time. So it was difficult. I really didn't have any cookbook strategy for tonight's race, and for the wild race it was to have everyone come out so aggressive at the beginning, we fared pretty well. So I'm happy, especially after missing last week's race. I hate to miss races, but able to finish strong the very next week.
Hey Dante, Zach up here in the boost. In the boost, yes, I'm having a hard time talking. Also, if you go back and watch the replay of tonight's race, don't listen to me saying your last name because I've butchered it almost every time, and I catch myself every time I do it. I don't know why I'm doing it. I just can't say your last name. But anyway, like you just mentioned, you weren't here last week, but so far this season, every week that you have been present, you've been a solid contender. There hasn't been very many times that you've run that you haven't been in contention or played some sort of a part in the outcome of the race. So as we get 6 races into the books here, another 3 races to go into the playoffs. What is your confidence level heading into them? Do you think that you can get up there and run with those cars? Because I don't know if the 088 plans on coming back or not, but what we're seeing very consistently is it seems like the top 5 cars in the field and in the points, on a routine basis, are just really, really fast. Are you comfortable? What's your confidence level, going head to head with those guys?
Yeah, our super speedway program has been getting a lot better every week. And, working with Jessica Shelton and Jeremy Jeffries on a weekly basis has really helped me become better. And, I've learned something almost every night from these guys. And it's just a lot of patience. And, I tend to find myself moving to the middle or top of the racetrack near the end of the races when I can. That's the move I'd like to make. But as you see tonight, it wasn't always possible. So really, I try to play it safe and, keep the car clean, not make an easy mistake. And as long as I can do that between now and the chase, I think I can push myself to a championship contending spot and really have a good shot at it this season.
All right, so that leads to my follow-up question. After tonight's race, unofficially, you're sitting fourth in the points behind Joe, Bob, and Chuck, 36 points out of lead. Are you pretty comfortable riding into the playoffs, at this point, or are you in the mindset that you need to go out there and win every week?
Well, I really want to win because race wins give you the most bonus in your playoff seeding. And you never know what can happen in the playoffs. The more bonus points you have going into a round, the better off you can be. So I'm really, really trying to get another win. And I also am aware that, I could make a move and get caught up in a crash and have a mulligan here or there. So while we don't know what's going to happen, the more wins, the better, as we've seen in past seasons. And, I'd really like to be able to try and get another win before this chase cut off and then to help me push through the most important rounds of the chase. So I go out there with the mindset to try and win every night. And that's what I do.
Yeah, for sure. I hear you. Solid third place run tonight, Dante. It's always a lot of fun running with you. I love it when we run together, man. But who do you have out there? Who do you want to thank for putting you where you are right now and helping you get to where you're at?
Well, I'd like to thank my family, especially my brother Craig, who is now in the middle of the country near Cincinnati. Also, a big thank you to all of our RTG admins and owners, Bones, Terry Bauman, Sean Prime, and also Josh Metallic and Wiley Cody, series admins for Tally Challenge. And just everyone who comes out every night to drive in this league, thank you so much. It is amazing to have a chance to drive with such great drivers here at RTG. Good win for Tim, good second place for Mark, and a special thanks to both you, Zach, and Seth for broadcasting, and everyone who broadcasts. Zach, you do a tremendous job. You're an amazing broadcaster, and Seth, it's always a pleasure to have you in here. Without you guys, I don't know where we'd be. You guys do a great job. So thank you to both of you as well.
Well, we appreciate it, Dante, and thanks for giving us a heck of a show here tonight as well, Talladega. Always a wild one whenever you guys take the track, and looking forward to seeing what's going to happen here down the home stretch leading to the playoffs. But congrats on a great third place run here tonight.
Thanks.
And as we were talking to Dante, obviously we already mentioned the fact that they've got this bracket series going on and a couple of upsets here this evening. Doug Woolley, the number 31 seed, upsetting Cy Jones. So he'll move on to the bracket of 8. Another driver also pulling off an upset tonight with his runner-up finish. Mark Paglia, the number 19 seed, dethrones Bob Seminara. So he'll be moving on to the round of 8. And we're going to talk with him right now. Hey, Mark, it's Zach and Seth up here in the Flatout Racing Network studios. You got us?
I sure do, Zach and Seth. How you guys doing tonight?
Well, we're doing great, man. We've seen you up there near the front in the closing stages of a number of these races, and you almost pulled it off here tonight. 8/1000ths of a second. What little more did you need there in the trial to maybe be able to edge Nofsker for your first win of the season?
I wish I had the magic pill for that answer, but I really don't know. I had a ton of help from Grant Wesley. I helped him, I think, earlier in the year, earlier in the season one time, pushed him to a win, and he got over team speak. He said, go for it. So, and just crossed my fingers. It's just a little short.
Obviously, we've been documenting your last couple of weeks. You started out rather slow at the beginning of the season, but you've really turned the heat up since then. You now find yourself up inside of the top 10 in the point standings. I mean, is this definitely what you're looking for, the consistency to point your way in, or are you still of the mentality of wanting to find victory lane before the regular season ends?
Well, the victory would be great. That's the brass ring of this whole deal. But if I have to point my way in, that's the kind of the attitude I'm going with. If I can win a race, I'm going to go for it. But if I could just be consistent, get in the top 4 or 5 every race and point my way in, I'll be happy.
Hey, Mark and Zach up here in the booth. Hey, man, what a great second place finish that you had tonight. It was a lot of fun watching you make your way up and, get to the front. I was really pulling for you. I thought that you had what it took. You had that 88 on your back bumper, who was a tremendous pusher all night long. But just to be a little bit selfish for a moment, I want to thank you because you have been the example, and you can ask Seth, that I've used over the last 2 or 3 weeks, of a really good driver that was kind of stuck mired down, in under 15th place in the point standings, and with a couple solid wins over the last couple weeks, you've really put together a really strong showing. You went from below 20th to 15th coming into tonight, leaving tonight unofficially 7th in points, 65 points out of the points lead. Are you comfortable with where you're at? Do you think that you can continue this momentum? And what's your confidence level?
Well, this tonight was definitely a confidence booster. Yeah, I just really just try to, be consistent, try to drive safe. I know sometimes I get out of my lane, and I did with the second week where I think I was second, but then I got penalized because I went below the yellow line. That was just a stupid mistake on my part, but I'm just really trying to be consistent, and I just can't say enough about RTG. It's just such a great league, and all these guys are just, you know, not only great racers, they're just great people to be racing with. They're always willing to help each other, and to race with good people just makes yourself better.
Mark, I've got to ask you this question, because I don't think that, there are a lot of people that really understand, aside from, your hardcore regulars that race this series and this league every week, how hard it is to get to atop the podium and, just get a win, let alone a championship. What would it mean to you to be able to get one of those victories and, win your way into the playoffs rather than have to point your way in?
Uh, it would mean a lot to me. When you see Grant Wesley and Joe DeSpirito, Chuck McClure, and tonight Tim Nosker, I'd hate to leave anybody out of the mix. Bob Sonera, they're just the cream of the crop, and when I'll be able to hang with them and be competitive with them, I feel that I'm kind of accomplishing something. But to get that win with that group of guys and be a part of that club, that would be awesome.
Right on, Mark. Really solid showing, man. We look forward to seeing you up front there these last few weeks leading up to the playoffs. Who do you got to thank for getting you here tonight and, moving forward?
Well, to get me in that second place, obviously Grant Wesley. Again, he just yelled on there and go for it, so I went with him. But again, I'd like to thank all the guys at RTG. They're just great people to race with. It's hard to single out just one person, but Josh Metallic, he does a great job with ministering this series on Thursday nights. And again, everybody's just so helpful, so friendly, work with each other. So I just my group of friends, and I hope they feel the same about me as I do them.
Well, that's Mark Paglia. He brings it home for his best finish of the season so far. Second place here tonight at Talladega. Congrats on a great run. Congrats on the momentum you've had, and hopefully we can continue to see you have this good momentum heading down the home stretch towards the playoffs.
Well, thank you, Seth and Zach. You guys do a great job. I always enjoy watching the next day and just to see see where I messed up and where I can do better. That's always helpful too. Thanks, guys.
That's Mark Paglia bringing home second place here tonight. And I think you alluded to it, Zach, as far as the way that he has turned his season around. We look at his first three starts, all outside of the top 20. His last three finishes, however, fourth, and a second place here tonight. He comes up 1,000 short, coming to the white flag and the caution flag to this man as we go down trackside to victory lane to speak with Tim Nosker. Tim, it's Zach and Seth up here in the Flatout Racing Network studios. You got us?
Gotcha, guys.
Well, man, first start of the season, and you put a 1 in the win column. 32 laps led here tonight, a very dominating performance. But, how in the world did you do it? Because it's not easy, as we saw, to be able to keep the car up front, especially when we saw 2 occasions of 3 wide for the lead.
Well, I had a lot of help. I tried to stay up in the top 5 in that first run. We got that early caution, and then just tried to position myself where I didn't fall back too far. And we got that first round of green flag pit stops, and then I think it was in everybody's best interest to try to put a gap on that second group. So we had it going on. We were flying in that 9-car draft. It was, as a leader, usually you're running about 197, and I was pushing 200 in that straight line pack. So we were getting around pretty good. And then at the end, uh, I guess I got to thank Mark and Dante. They both gave me great pushes when I needed them, and it was only fitting that I battled Mark at the end there. He helped me throughout a lot of the race. So if he would have won, I would have been just fine with that too.
Going down there towards the end of this race, it was looking like it was going to come down between you and 5 other drivers. We get that late race yellow. Next thing you know, you got 19 competitors behind you with a chance of trying to take that victory away from you. How difficult is it as a driver mentally to be able to strategize for 6 drivers and then have to shift gears, preparing for the possibility that you're going to maybe see a second and a third lane coming?
Yeah, it is. It's hard to shift gears like that. I mean, when Grant was pushing me there toward coming to 7, 8 to go, I think it was, I was focused on the mirror more than I was looking out the front there. Just wondering if they were going to make an early move on me or something. And then the caution came out, kind of switched everything up. I was hoping to clear him on the restart, and Mark gave him such a good push on the high side that I wasn't able to clear him. And if you don't clear him by turn 2, then it's going to be side by side. But Dante was right on my bumper, and he was giving me some really good pushes to keep me even. And then when Grant cleared, I wasn't going to let it go at that. I figured I need at least 2 laps to get by him. So I shot up to the high side right away, and that turned out to be the race winner because the caution came out.
Hey, Tim, Zach up in the booth. Hey, man, good win. And it's weird to talk to you in this capacity. Usually it's us, shooting the breeze after the race is over down in the race room. But heck of a run there, man. How are you feeling about it? A lot of really fast cars. Also, I just want you to know, when the broadcast kicked off and Seth and I were talking, I told him, I said, hey, Seth, that 088 car, first start of the season, he's not in this for points. He's going to go out there and try to win that thing. That's exactly what you did.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Zach. Yeah, I just took a little time off. Need to decompress from the racing scene, and just was thinking about it last week. Watched you guys on the broadcast. You guys do a great job, and kind of got the itch again. So I decided to drop in and see what we could do.
Thank you, because you're leading me right into the next question that I was going to ask you. You come in here, race 6. You stink up the show completely. Probably one of the fastest cars out there on the racetrack. You pull off the victory. We're only about 4 races away from the playoffs. Does this make you think about, making a run on these last few races before that playoff, get yourself in that top 20 in points and see if you can't run after a championship?
Oh, that would be a tall mountain to climb. I'm going to show up and run my race, and whatever happens. I just enjoy talking to the guys, and Josh and Wiley and Chuck McClure. I just love coming in here talking to the guys. Whatever happens. If that's the way it plays out, then so be it. But we'll see what happens. I think I'm pretty far out though.
All right on, man. Hey, again, congratulations on that win, and you got to come out. You got to come run some Monday nights with us too, because with the exception of a certain number 5 car, we're kind of getting that gang back together on Monday nights. So you got to get out there too.
Yeah, and I'll see how the schedule looks, but I would like that.
Well, Tim, obviously a great run for you here tonight. Your first start of the season is your first trip to victory lane here in season 51. We're going to let you do some shout outs now.
Yeah, well, obviously I give a shout out to Josh and Wiley. Thursday is the toughest night to win, and to keep all these guys in order, it's a difficult task for sure. And then I gotta give a shout out to the guys that were pushing me tonight, and the guys that like running around, Mark and Chuck and Josh and And Joe did some good pushing there. You're only as fast as the guy behind you. So I just guess I got in front of the right guys tonight. But I also got to give a thank you to my wife for letting me do this, and definitely give a shout out to my daughter, who every time I race, she is watching Flatout Racing Network. So I just love that she has an interest in watching Grandpa do this.
Well, that's Tim Nofsker. He brings it home with the victory here tonight at Talladega Superspeedway. Congrats on a great run, and really hope that you're going to be able to run the rest of the season here, because it'd be really cool to see you up there battling for the playoffs for the second year in a row.
Yeah, thank you guys. I appreciate everything you guys do.
And in terms of Tim Nofsker, the possibility of him being able to make it into the playoffs, I'm looking right now at the unofficial standings after his victory. He's only about 130 points out of 10th place. And I think, Zach, if we use Mark Peggley as an example, doesn't matter how dismal or how far back your season may be going, I still think 4 races is enough time for him to maybe be able to consistently make his way up there into that top 10.
Yeah, and that 088 card, Tim Nofsker, man, he's one of those guys that could go out there and legitimately contend for that victory, these last 4 races leading up to the playoffs. But you heard him talk about how tall a task that would be. And why is that? The unpredictability of Talladega and super speedway racing. So although I wouldn't be opposed to putting my money on the 088 being able to make a run like that, I also understand his hesitation as a driver too, because you need to go out there and have a perfect race every single race and hope that absolutely nothing happens around you, which is so unlikely at these sort of tracks with this style racing.
Now, let's quickly just talk about this race as far as a recap, because, there were a couple of boxes that we checked. We had more than 30 cars. Usually, when there's more than 30 cars, we end up seeing multiple yellows. We really only saw 2 cautions here tonight due to crashes. We had that late yellow come out for the blown engine of Josh Metallic. We saw 3 wide racing at the beginning. One time it worked. The second time it led to our first caution, but a lot of aggressive racing here tonight. Not as much of an appearance of the yellow flag, which, heading down this home stretch, kind of surprises me a little bit.
And that's something else that we kind of talked about. I think it was the first week that I joined you in the broadcast booth, Seth. It was a comment that I made that with this style of racing, the way that it plays out, the strategy involved, and the unpredictability of these events, you could have the same exact drivers. I'll say it again: the same exact drivers start in the same exact spots 5 weeks in a row and have completely different outcomes to these races, because it's all circumstantial. It all depends on exactly how everything plays out on the racetrack, and you tend to run into that sort of butterfly effect, on the racetrack, where if one small thing happens, it could have a tremendous impact on the outside or on the outcome of the race. And you just can't plan for those sort of things. So it's that unpredictability, and I think that's one of those things that these guys love about these super speedways and this series is it puts anybody in contention. You always have those 4 or 5 guys that are always the super quick guys that you'll see up front, but the rest of the other 25 to 30 cars in the field know that they've got just as good a shot as well.
And the points just continue to stay close each and every week as well. Only 30-point separation from 6th down to 18th heading into next week. But race 6 is in the books. 4 more races until we determine the 10 drivers that will be battling for the playoffs. And we'll have coverage of race 7 next week. Green flag to fly at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time next Thursday. Zach and I'll be there to call that one. But tonight, Zach, appreciate you joining me in the booth for this one.
Yeah, for sure, Seth. Again, we saw a really good race tonight, a really exciting race with a great outcome. It landed, might have ended a lap early due to a yellow flag, but I'll tell you what, the racing that we got from beginning to end, totally worth it. A couple, pretty sizable incidents, but not big enough to knock out the entire field. I am happy with what I saw out there on the racetrack, and I can't wait for next week.
Absolutely. It came down to a splitter. 8/1000ths of a second. Tim Nofsker taking the checkered flag here tonight in his first start of season 51 of the RTG Talladega Challenge. Hope you guys enjoyed our coverage here this evening. We'll see you guys next week. For Zach Fremont, I'm Seth Cole. We'll see you guys next Thursday night, as tonight you've been watching another broadcast courtesy of the Flatout Racing Network.